friends. Tonight is our grand conclusion to the Book of Sorrows series. It's been a wonderful past few weeks taking this journey with you all, and I hope that by our discussions you have gained some knowledge and insight into the origin story of the Hive and their larger place in Destiny lore. And don't worry, the lore does not end here. Every Wednesday evening, the Dames of Destinies and the Safe Gamers stream and discuss lore on our respective Twitch pages, so go check those out every Wednesday. So, all right, show your Titans some love for this last act. Let's grab our grimoires and find a good place to read. This spot has a nice view. I'm liking it. Last week was the climax of our story. Our three sisters, Oryx, Savathun, and Xivu, decimated the Harmony system on behalf of the Deep, which could possibly be the darkness, and forced the traveler to flee out of that section of the universe. Xivu, the youngest sister, uses brute force to attempt to win her battles. Savathun, the middle sister, creates secret covens of witches, ready to strike when the time is right for victory. Oryx eventually joins in on the fight, and the traveler is dealt a significant blow by Oryx's winds. One interesting thing in the lore here about the battle for Harmony is that there were dragons, and they were fighting alongside the Hive, but they were a separate, protected entity under the Deep. After this battle is over, the sisters part ways. Xivu completely closes off any contact to her sword world by her two sisters and goes to the other side of the universe. Alternatively, Savathun becomes distant, meaning she knows of Oryx's demise and what we did, and I think she's coming for us, and we'll talk about that a bit later. So if last week was the climax of our galactic play, this week we are pulling everything together with a very introspective look at the Taken King herself, Oryx. This week are the final three cards in the Book of Sorrows series. We're looking at parts 48 to 50. And this is pretty light reading, so I really would encourage you to take a look at these passages. For me, it was these three sections more than any other in the entire book that humanized Oryx and made him relatable. Remember, Oryx started off as Arash, the navigator daughter of a mad king. She faced much in her lifetime. There was the destruction of her home, the terror of being a pursued refugee. Then she made a deal with the devil, essentially, to take back what was hers. She eventually grew to create a vast galactic empire and one of the most effective war machines outside of the Cabal. She also died and was resurrected many times throughout this journey. She navigated a new, terrible philosophy across the universe. Those who exist only do so at the death of everything else. And yet, over tens of thousands of years of forging her own destiny, the Taken King still has doubts about what she has done. Now, she expressed these doubts to Savathun, who is sort of the queen of witches, they call, because we're going to take down this one right here. Now, she shares some of the doubts. How do they know that their deadly philosophy about the right to exist is the correct one? What happens when their worms become too hungry again and there's not enough left in the universe for them to consume to maintain themselves? Savathun even asks Oryx if he is too much a slave to the Deep, just like the Taken are. After the sisters split, Oryx enters into a time of relative prosperity, if you can think of killing everything with ease as prosperity. And Oryx uses this time to ponder his existence more and the existence of the universe and his philosophy. Crota and his two sisters continue to feed Oryx's war tribute so that Oryx himself does not have to fight. And he uses this time to study and commune with the Deep. What he discovers about the Deep isn't written down in his books, but it makes him seem more reflective of the past and more realistic about the future. He also vows to find out where the Deep came from and where the Traveler came from. And at one point in this consideration, he considers traveling back to the Fundament to see what happened to the people of his planet after the God Wave, which was caused by the Traveler, passed through. He returns to his age-old question: how can we live in a universe long enough to understand it? Remember, when Arash was born, she was expected to live maybe 10 years, not tens of thousands of years. And it was this question she asked in all of her journeys going forward. How can I learn more? Oryx decides not to go back to the fundament because he makes the self-realization that he is what became of that planet, the ruthless, immortal descendant which now cleanses the universe of impurity. Oryx ends this book on a reflection of how vast his power is and how much that has made him vulnerable. We're going to see more of that in our Grimoire card later. But for now, we're going to have some fun and we're going to make some educated guesses about what the different storylines might be coming up out of this set of lore, what it sets up for Bungie to create in Destiny going forward. So let's start off with someone that we completely forgotten about, was Taux. She was the governess of the three sisters while they were on the fundament, basically her teacher, or their teacher. She was the one who portrayed their father, the king, leading her to become the queen regent for an enemy race. When the sisters returned with their worms and their army, Taux fled to the moons surrounding the fundament, and that's where the Traveler was. The lore suggests that the Traveler protected Taux and sent her into some sort of stasis. And we know this because she shows up on other moons and planets giving knowledge about the Hive well past her 10-year lifespan. I'm pretty sure it comes up about 10,000 years after she would have been expected to die. Where she will come up next, I'm not sure, but I think she might have played a part in Eris's education while she was with the Hive on the moon. And Taux may have been pursuing Crota. But that's a whole nother issue. Let's look at Eris. Eris has had a very interesting journey, which got more interesting with the addition of Oryx's sword. Now remember, the swords are the main parts of the power of the Hive royalty. Oryx says in part 49 that his estate, an estate is basically a will or what's given away when somebody dies, is eternity, infinity, and the whole universe beneath his sword. Now that Eris has the sword, what is going to happen? My first inclination is that she's going to use it to resurrect the queen and possibly find a way to wake the Traveler. I also think she might be going a little bit off the deep end when this happens. I think she might get a little bit power hungry. We already know she's crazy, and I think this might push her a little further off the edge there. So next, let's talk about the Traveler. There has always been a large debate within the Destiny community about whether or not the Traveler is good or evil. So from the lore that we've seen here, she's helped many civilizations, but she also set events into motion that caused the destruction of an entire planet. Now, that God wave we were talking about was created by the alignments of the moon, of which the Traveler was considered one of those moons. So it was 52 moons plus one, so plus the Traveler, that created the gravitational pull, that created the God wave, which destroyed everything. So if that was a means to an end, let's say, and the end was to prevent the Hive from rising and being this terrible sort of force within the universe, the Traveler kind of failed miserably because the Hive rose, didn't prevent the Deep from leaving the fundament, and it looks like they were pretty destructive. It also could have been a power play between the Traveler and the Deep or the Darkness so that the Darkness could not compete for the hearts and minds of the universe. And at the same time, the Traveler would have some legitimacy for trying to stop one of the most destructive evils from spreading across the universe. I mean, it's one of those, maybe the means justifies the ends, but neither the end wasn't met, which meant the means were kind of really, really bad. So, out of all of that, I think the storyline that's most likely to come out of this is we're going to start seeing the Queen of the Wizards come back. Now, think back to Act 8. In Act 8, we saw Savathon gain the Vex mind Korra, because we saw the rise and fall of the Vex within the Hive universe. Korra is a Vex mind that was created in order to coordinate the war against the Hive. It was defeated and captured by Oryx. Oryx didn't destroy the machine, but instead he gave it as a present or a curiosity to his sister, Savathun, so that she and her fellow witches could study it. I think Savathun's secret covens on Harmony could have something to do with this, and I think they may have been looking for a Vex portal. Now, whether or not Savathun is doing out there in the distance with her Vex toys, probably not good. I think there's a very real possibility for her trying to incorporate Vex technology into her sword logic, allowing her to teleport between not just places, but also time, so past and future. This would make for a very interesting raid encounter between us and Savathun if we get there. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's end this with a grimoire card with one of probably the most amazing pieces of lore that have been written in this whole section. It's part 50, Worm Food. What will happen if I die? It suits me to consider this, for I'm a great ally of death. My daughters study the quiddity of death, and my son practices the inhibition of death, and my great work is, in Ultima, to become synonymous with death. To die, and in that dying live, so that if the universe comes to nothing, then I will be part of nothing. Far better to have a savage universe with a happy end than a happy universe with no hope. I have died many times, and these deaths were only temporary. If my echoes are killed, and I am killed in the material world, then I will be driven back to my throne and the dreadnought. If my court and my throne can be beaten, if I'm confronted in my throne, if I'm defeated there, then I will die, and my work will end. This is the pact to which I'm bound, in particular by my study of the Tablets of Ruin, and by my use of the power of the deep. When I call upon that power, I put myself up as stakes as a wager. I gamble with my soul. For I am saying, listen, my gods, I am the mightiest thing there is, and I prove it thus. Lately, I've realized how much I depend on Crota and my daughters, even upon my court. If I lost them, my outlays would exceed my intakes, my tribute would not be enough to feed my worm. But this is proper. For if I lost them, it would be because they were not mighty enough, and then I would be a bad father and a bad king. I must test them and fight with them to keep them strong. This is my guise. I will go on forever. I will understand everything. There is only one path, and it is the path you make, but you will make it more than one path. Break your cell's bars. Make a new shape. Make the shape from its path. Find your cell's bars. Break free of the bars. Find a shape. Make the shape from its path. Eat the light. Eat the path. If I fail, let me be worm food. So now, in the lore of Destiny, we kind of already made them worm food. And his court. I mean, not a good place to be for orcs right now and for the hive. We kind of destroyed them. So where do you all think the story is going to take us next? Put your thoughts and conspiracy theories in the comment section below or in Twitch chat right now if you're watching us live. And remember, we are live every Wednesday evening, streaming the lore of Destiny on the Dames of Destiny Twitch. So come hang out with us. Be awesome. The next series you're going to see on this channel, beginning in just under 2 months, will be entitled The Life Exotic, where we're going to go through the lore of the exotic weapons and pieces of armor. So until then, Guardians, happy reading.